Some people are buying Apple shares. Other people
Are
are
buying
buying Apple
Apple
phones at 13, 14, 15.
As it's updating, you are updating with it. You know, we talked about Louis Vuitton, Moet and Chandon. It is a stock on the stock exchange. So some people own Louis Vuitton shares. Some people own Louis Vuitton bag to impress other people.
And I know some people who have eaten nothing but Indomie for a month just to buy those bags.
You know what I mean? Some of us are in our 30s, some of us are in our 40s. What will happen in 20 years? Do you have anything saved up to save you? If you don't, nobody's going to come. And we can't really bank on our children in this generation to say, my child is going to take me to the hospital when things are bad. It won't work.
Some people just put their old parents in homes.
That's if you can afford the home. We have work goals. We have spiritual goals. We have all those goals.
Yeah.
Money goals are also valid goals. So how do you beat that inflation? The phone that we bought $2 3 years ago is now $5. So there's also inflation in the dollar. You know, we have inflation in Naira, whatever our home currency is. There's also inflation in the dollar as well.
Hi guys, and welcome back to the 91 podcast. If you have subscribed, thank you. And if you haven't subscribed, please click the button below. It doesn't take anything from you. Anyway, today's guest needs no introduction, as it's not the first time he's been here. But I will give you a quote that I saw him put on Twitter recently, and it says, 2 topics impact everyone, whether you're interested in them or not, and they are health and money. Welcome, Toyyib.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That quote, I actually got it from The Psychology of Money, Morgan Housel. And it's a very, 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 very important quote. And I thought it's a good preview of what we are going to talk about today.
So, Toyyib, I'm sure when people have clicked on this video, it's probably because they saw the title or the thumbnail and they thought, okay, that's interesting. But can you give them a bit information on why they should stay on and watch the whole video? What are you going to give them today that would be useful to them?
Money is very, very critical. And money is a topic that we don't talk about, particularly people of our background.
Yes, I think we find it a bit rude to talk about money.
To talk about it. If you talk about it as a child, they will say, like in Yoruba, they say you have ojukokoro, like you are thinking way too high. Yeah, you know, and it is very important that we talk about money. We are not taught about it in school. And even here in the West, as they talk about money as much as they do, they still think they don't talk about it enough. Now look at us, where we are coming from. We want to be wealthy. We want to grow wealth. What are the hidden things that we don't know? You know, compound, how can things grow? How can things be wealthy? How can we be wealthy? Something shocking happened this week. And I think it is very, very important that we all know about it. Facebook went crazy on Friday, this Friday.
What happened? Facebook
was selling for $475 a share on Friday. And as at 2002, Facebook was selling for $99 a share.
Wow.
So you could say, like, within 1 year, you have kind of 4 times the money you invested if you are a Facebook investor. But majority of us use Facebook.
I didn't even know about
Facebook,
that.
we use Instagram, we use WhatsApp. Facebook owns WhatsApp. So about 4 billion people use this thing every day, use this service every day. But we never thought about, can I be a part owner
of Facebook?
So how can you grow wealth? How can you be wealthy? How can you, like, have something that you can look forward to, particularly for our generation? Some of us are in our 30s, some of us are in our 40s. What will happen in 20 years? Do you have anything saved up to save you? If you don't, nobody's going to come. And we can't really bank on our children in this generation to say, my child is going to take me to the hospital when things are bad. It won't work.
Some people just put their old parents in homes.
You know, if you can afford the home.
So, Toyyib, you talk a lot about wealth online, but I've met you twice. You know, you don't use an iPhone 15, you don't drive an expensive car, you don't wear designer clothes. So, what does wealth mean to you? Because some Gen Z is watching, you know, like, if you're not using iPhone 15, you know, why should I listen to your advice on wealth, you know?
Okay. Wealth is subjective, or how do they put it? Wealth is personal. Wealth for me, wealth is happiness. I have been in situations growing up. I spoke about it the last time. We struggled to eat. We struggled to know where breakfast is going to come from. Sometimes dad will go out and we wouldn't eat till he comes back, until he makes some money, until he brings something back home. So being able to afford 3 square meals, being able to not worry about where breakfast or lunch is coming from, that is wealth. And the last time we spoke, we talked about my my episode when I went to the mental health hospital. And there was something that happened to me then that changed my perception about life, about having so much material stuff. The night that I went into hospital, I had some money with me. And that money was like the tips I made from the work that night. And I wrapped it, I put it straight in my pocket. I was like, that was the money I was using to support myself. That money was really, really important to me. But that night, when I went to the hospital, I couldn't find the money. Like, there was no way I could find that money. It just went like that. So when I was discharged, after 5 months, when I was discharged from the mental health hospital, I didn't even know where I was for most of the time. When I was discharged after 5 months, they told me to go and collect my belongings. And lo and behold, the money that I wrapped in my pocket that night was there. And I was like, it was just like this memento mori kind of moment where it'd be like, all these things that you are holding close to your heart, all these clothes, all this jewel, all this diamond, very quickly. You won't take it away. You won't take it away with you. 50 Cent bought Mike Tyson's big mansion. And when they asked him some questions, a few years later, he said, no. Those kind of houses make you crazy. Like, you don't need those kind of houses to be happy. So there might be people that are like struggling, but they have very good people around them. And that is the most important thing. Having good people around you to share time with. That is much more important than like Prada. Okay, another crazy thing happened. The CEO of Louis Vuitton, Moet, and NSC, he owns all those conglomerates, the family. They own Louis Vuitton, Hennessy, all the big, very, very big brands. And he became the richest man in the world just for probably for a few days or something, because all of us, we are so materialistic. All of us want to drink the champagne. We want to buy the Gucci bag. We want to buy the Prada shoes. We want to buy that. But people are feeding on this consumerism. People are making so much money because we want to down the champagne. We want to impress the next guy.
I saw somewhere that Nigerians are actually the world's greatest consumers of champagne.
Well, we are 200 million people. We like to have a good time. But the thing is that a lot of us seek external validation.
Yes.
We want to show I better pass my neighbor.
That's why we buy these things.
It comes from deep insecurities. So the first thing you want to show somebody is to show them that you are richer than them. The first thing you want to show the opposite sex is to show that, look, I am wealthy. I am bigger than the next guy.
Can't you see my Louis Vuitton belt?
Can't you see my Louis Vuitton bag? Can't you see my? There was a photo of Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. I'm not sure if that photo is still on the internet. And the both of them stood together and they were talking to each other. And someone wrote under the caption like, "These two guys are worth probably like $300 billion, and there's no single belt." No single Gucci belt in sight. So when you are valuable inside yourself and you know the value of the kind of person you are,
you don't need to wear external validation.
Funny enough, I don't have a wristwatch.
Wow.
Because like if I can check the time on my phone.
Why do you need a wristwatch?
My sister gave me a Fit Farm wristwatch. Because when she graduated from university, she wanted to say thank you to me and all of that. And then she now gave me the wristwatch. Then the last time we were on the phone, she was like, "You're not wearing this wristwatch." I'll wear it. I'll wear it. It just, like, life is just so simple. And if you are with happy people, if you are happy with where you are in life, you don't need any huge show off. You don't need you don't need a lot.
Yes.
To enjoy yourself. When I went to Iceland, the ticket was like £100. The hotel was reasonably fair as well. So if you go to places like that, there are sometimes you want to go to Europe, the ticket is like £30, £20, and you get to a nice hotel, you meet new people, you enjoy yourself, and I think, why do you need all these millions of dollars? You don't need so much. Just be happy with life, keep progressing bit by bit, and everything will be okay.
Wow. There's honestly a lot of knowledge and insight in there.
Thank you.
So my next question is, how do we become wealthy? Because I noticed you give a lot of advice, financial advice online, which I myself, I've benefited from that because my husband, I think he read something you put out there quite a while ago, and we've started doing those steps, and they've been a real blessing to us. So how do you become wealthy?
To become wealthy is very simple. First of all, I would say I'm not a qualified financial advisor. But what I do is to share the things that I've encountered myself. And for me to be able to encounter that, I had to go deep down to do some research, read a lot of books to kind of get my financial understanding of how does money work.
Yeah.
I even took CFA level 1,
Wow.
The financial analyst course, just to have an understanding, to have the basic knowledge of how money works. My background is how do they call it? Not born with silver spoon. We were really, really poor. And as I was growing up, I felt there must be some things. I mean, people have advantages, fine. But there must be some things that these people know that we don't know. Can we, I took, when you come from that background sometimes, in that society, there could be people that are resentful of the rich. And be like, they are corrupt, they stole all the money, that's why they're wealthy.
Doing juju.
Those kind of things, like money ritual and stuff like that. It goes to one joke that I wrote that out recently, and I said, look, when Microsoft went public, when Microsoft became a public company, Bill Gates was owning 40%, about 40% of all of Microsoft shares when Microsoft went public. If Bill Gates did not sell any shares, Microsoft today is worth $3 trillion.
Wow.
So if Bill Gates did not sell any shares, at least he'll be worth $1 trillion US dollars.
Wow.
There is no money ritual that can get you to that kind of point. So wealth comes from ownership of an enterprise. So as I was saying, I went back to reading about wealth, Think and Grow Rich, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, The Richest Man in Babylon.
But I recently saw that the writer of Rich Dad, Poor Dad actually is in debt.
Yes, because he's using debt to build wealth.
Okay.
So there's good debt and there's bad debt.
I'd ask you a bit more about that, but let me let you continue with what you were saying.
Yeah,
first.
so I started reading those books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich, and there are lots of them. Intelligent Investor, Benjamin Graham, Simple Pathway to Wealth, J.L. Collins. There are so many of those books. Psychology of Money recently by Morgan Housel. There's a lot of them. Learn to Earn by Peter Lynch. So many of those books, I delved.
You've consumed all those books.
I consumed. I went in. I was watching podcast after podcast, YouTube after YouTube.
Wow.
I just wanted to know: is there something that we are missing?
As those Nigerian parents say, is it that people don't have two heads?
They don't have two heads. Yeah, is there something that we are missing? And then it got me to understand that location is very important. When they ask Warren Buffett, who is arguably the richest investor of modern times, they asked him some questions, and he said, if he were not born in America, as at the time he was born, there's a high chance that he will not be as wealthy as he is.
Location is important.
Location is important.
That's why a lot of Nigerians are leaving Nigeria to go to other locations. Would you say
to try and earn? Because you get your primary source of wealth. Your number Dave Ramsey used to say this thing. Your primary source of building wealth is your income. That is where your wealth is going to come from. If it's not coming from inheritance or you married a rich person, your primary source of wealth is your income.
And that income, you'd probably use it to make more wealth.
To make more wealth. But that income is a function of the value you put in the marketplace. And different markets pay different amounts for different skills.
Different locations have different value. And that's why I saw something. Sorry, I follow so many of these mom groups online.
Yeah.
But I saw something that a mom wrote. And she said, when you go to a supermarket, a bottle of water might be 50p.
Exactly.
You go to on a plane, it's a different price. You go somewhere, it's a different price.
It's a different price.
So what you just said is important. Your location determines your value to people.
Yes.
So I might sell something, maybe a cup of tea here. But if I sell it somewhere else, I might make more money from that cup of tea.
It doesn't determine your value particularly, but it determines what you get for the value you provide. Because you are valuable, without a doubt. You are valuable based on the skills you've acquired over time, based on the experience you've acquired over time. But that same amount of skills that you have, what they will pay you in this location is different from what they will pay you in another location. That is why you see that majority of the musicians in the UK, they want to go and crack America. Idris Elba left the UK to go to America to act.
I was wondering, why so many of them are in America?
Because the amount of money, America is the biggest economy in the world. America is the world superpower. The world's reserve currency is the US dollars. All of this has happened since the Second World War. So the people that are here, they want to go there because they know that is where they can get paid the most for the skills they have. So where does that leave people like us back home?
Does that mean we should all japa then to be able to get more?
Not necessarily. This is how I see it playing out. The way I see it playing out is that, number one, you have to make enough naira to counter for the inflation. The rate at which your income increases must be faster than the rate at which inflation increases. Otherwise, you are poorer by the day.
But how are you going to do that?
That is very difficult. And there are some ways around it. And this is what I try to tell a lot of young people, that there are some ways around it. The first one is that bring yourself onto the web, which is the biggest marketplace in the world. Whatever you are trying to do, come online, come to Twitter, come to Facebook, come to Instagram, come to LinkedIn. Put your product or put yourself out there as much as possible. You don't want to have just one line of income, which is where you work and they pay you probably 100,000 naira a month. The rate of inflation is catching up faster with you than anything else. So you find out that if you are earning 200,000 a month, fast forward 6 months from now, because of the rate at which transport fare is increasing, pepper is increasing in the market, school fees is increasing, everything is increasing, that 200,000 is no longer enough for all the things you have to look after. If you get married, if you get children, you are very, very unstable. And now that goes back to that question that quote that we started with. Health and money are very critical to all of us. Whether you like it or not. The fact that you are struggling does not mean you won't grow older. So it is something that we still have to think about regardless of the present situation.
And if you're getting older and struggling more and more and more and more.
And that time when you cannot run around anymore, there has to be something saved up somewhere to look after you. Whether you like it or not.
But with the way things are going, with the way the economy is, the way people are suffering, how is anyone supposed to become wealthy or even save?
Okay, this is the first line of thought in that way. As we were saying, bring your skills to the marketplace. Nothing is easy, but in the midst of all of that, we still have to be deliberate about how we push our skills out there. In today's market, there has never been a time in the history of man, as difficult as things are now, there has never been a time in the history of man where you can earn from all parts of the world based on the skills that you have.
That's true, actually. Never been a time like this.
There has never been a time like this. You know, Rick Ross, the musician, was making a few comments 2 days ago, and he was talking about Portable, the artist in Nigeria, about probably a chance of working together.
Rick Ross talking about Portable. Portable.
Our own Portable. You know, Idamu Aduboyi, our own Portable. Rick Ross was talking about him.
Wow.
You know, so there has never been a time in the history of mankind that you can earn from all parts of the world.
But everywhere is so connected
Everywhere
now.
is interconnected.
So it's easy for you to
commerce
earn from
can
here,
happen.
from there.
You know, people can pay you
very easily
for what you are doing if you create value for them outside.
Yeah.
So as a young person, you may be from Nigeria, you may be in a village somewhere, you may be in Kumasi, you may be in Bamako. You want to find a skill that does not restrict you just to the border of your country.
Yeah.
You want to find something. If it is copywriting, there's a famous guy on Twitter, I mean X now, they call him Fabrizio Romano.
Okay.
Like, he announces all the football transfers, and it's like, here we go. Like, the whole world looks up to him for football transfer news.
Wow.
There was a day that I saw that one of the guys making his graphics is from Nigeria.
And he obviously didn't have to go to Nigeria to meet this person.
He doesn't have to go to
Probably
Nigeria.
met them online. Now the person has a good gig going for them.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Fabrizio is not going to pay that guy a Naira rate.
No.
Even if he won't pay him as much as he's going to pay someone in Europe, but he will pay him a well-compensated amount for what he has done, which will be a far cry from what he will earn in Nigeria. So that is what is in our hands at the moment. Particularly where we come from, there is huge unemployment.
Yes.
We have gone to school, study biology education, study all these courses that we don't really know what we are going to do about it. And we are now in the marketplace. The market is like, there's no jobs. You know, so it is not our fault, but it is still our problem to fix. So the primary source of wealth growing is income. So whatever you've brought in terms of value, how do you want to make money that will look after you? And then you now set, like they say, the first rule of finance is spend less than you earn and invest the rest. So you must first of all earn first, then reduce your spending, then invest the balance. And that's where there is no book that I have read. They've always come and they've always come back to that principle. Spend less than you earn and invest the rest.
Hi guys. As you know, this podcast is brought to you for free, even though it does cost us some money to try and put it together. So if you'd like to support us, please click and send us a super sticker. Any amount would be appreciated. Or you could email us at 91productionsltd@gmail.com if you'd like to sponsor and work with our business to bring even more content. Please do support us, and we promise that we will bring you even better content of greater quality that will inspire, educate, and motivate you. Thank you for watching once again. We really appreciate all your support. There was something you mentioned earlier, good debt and bad debt. And I think it was until I came to the UK that I saw that so many people are living in debt.
Yes.
So many households are in debt. And it's not something I've ever been used to. Yes. You know, in Nigeria, you don't really see that many people that are living in debt. And I think even just, let me just give you some figures. As of June 2023, the average personal debt in the UK has reached £34,597 for adults and £65,529 for households. So there's so much debt. So why is it that people in the UK live in so much debt compared to people back home in Nigeria?
It is the way the system is built. We have to understand that. And there is, I've read quite a bit on that, but there is one video that kind of explains it a lot. That video is called How the Economy Works, How the Economic Market Works in 30 Minutes. That video was by Ray Dalio, who is one of the wealthiest persons on earth. I think it's worth about $19 billion.
Wow.
He owns an hedge fund called Bridgewater. So what he did was just to explain how the economic machine works in 30 minutes. And that video blows your mind. It gives you a lot of graphic representation. And then when you dig further, you will now understand that the amount of cash that is in circulation, the amount of debt that is in circulation is way more than the amount of cash that is in circulation. That is how the Western system is built.
Okay.
It is built on lenders and borrowers. So every economy, there is always what they call interest rates. The central bank sets interest rates, which is the rate at which we all borrow money from. Let's say you go to a bank, for example, the central bank might have set the interest rate at 5%. I think it's around 5% presently. So the bank will add their own bit on it, which will be the rate you borrow money from the bank. So if you are getting a credit card or if you're getting something, that will be the rate at which you will borrow money. So everybody that has like a credit profile, that has built a credit profile to some extent, are able to borrow some money. And you can create credit out of thin air.
This doesn't sit so well with me, because growing up, I've been taught that being in debt is wrong. I've been taught that if you have debt, it's like a chain holding you down.
Yes, definitely. And I think there was one Bible verse that said the borrower is a servant to the lender.
I didn't want to
go even as a Muslim, like you are not supposed to do debt that has interest.
Yeah,
that's what the law is. So, but as I said, there is good debt and there is bad debt.
How can there be good debt and bad debt?
Okay, the bad debt is this. By general consensus, is that if you get a debt and you use that debt for consumables, let's say you use the debt to buy anything that is not productive,
like a nice handbag.
Well, some people even say handbags have resale value. If you buy like a premium model. Someone said that. I heard that before. Or if you use debt to buy like television. Some people they go and buy television and you're just watching it with Netflix and you're just, like that does not. Jim Rohn has this classic quote. He said he saw a guy that has a very huge potential and he said, that television you bought, how much does it cost you? And the guy said like it cost him, let's say like $3,000. He said, for someone of your value, I am sure that television is costing you $20,000. He said, how? He said, it cost you $3,000 to buy it, but it cost you $20,000 to watch it. Because the time that you spend watching that TV, you can use it to acquire a different kind of skill and make more money from it. Yeah. So the concept of good and bad debt comes from what you use the debt for.
Okay.
Nigeria as a country, every analyst talks about it, that Nigeria borrows so much money to build so much things that either they are not working, they are not maintained right. So, and it now turns down to what did we borrow all this money for? Yes. If it's going to end up where we don't expect it to end up, it is not of value to us. Yes. So if you go to the bank and you borrow money to buy a tractor, for example, and it improves your production
to make money,
to make more money,
yes.
And your business grows. Almost all businesses borrow.
Okay.
All major conglomerates borrow. They go to raise money from the market. They raise money from you and I, telling us to buy their shares, or they go to the bank to borrow to get some credit.
So, sorry, can you give us a definition then of good debt and bad debt?
Good debt would be that you invest in an asset that will generate future income.
Okay.
Maybe you buy like property. People believe buying property with debt is still a good debt because property is expected to appreciate in price.
Yeah.
If you buy like factors of production, anything that improves your production, you buy land, you buy tractor, with the understanding and the analysis. And that's why before you even go to debt, you have to do an analysis to say, this is how I expect to pay back this money from the return I make from the business I put the money into. But if you buy, let's say you take a debt to buy an iPhone and you're just using the iPhone, it's not like you're using it to make videos or you're using it to, you're not having any plan of increasing your income
with the iPhone,
with the resources
and over
you have.
time the cost of the iPhone is dropping. So even if you try and sell it, you won't get back the same amount of money.
You won't get back the same amount of money. So that you can consider that a bad debt.
Bad debt, okay.
Or you take debt to buy a brand new car that you cannot afford. You know, your income really cannot afford it. But you bought a brand new car, and you know that if you drive the brand new car off from the seller, the moment you drive it out, it has already dropped in value.
Appreciated, yeah.
So it's not like you're using it for Uber, because there are a lot of people that buy Uber cars on finance and they pay it back bit by bit. That can be considered a good debt because you've used that money to create a business. But if you use it just to buy leisure, just to carry you and your boyfriend, or you carry you and your girlfriend just to show off to people, that means you have just, what you've just done is that you have put some pressure on your future income. The work that you have not done, by taking that bad debt, the work that you have not done yet, you are already reducing what will come to you.
What you earn from it.
Because you have to pay back.
Whether you like it or not.
Whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And here, you cannot run away from debt.
Wow.
Once your name is in, it is in.
It'll chase you down.
It's already on your credit file. So it is always good to understand. And if, let's say, for religious purposes, you don't want to get into interest or things like that, there are debts that are like zero interest. You know, like you can buy an iPhone, zero interest. They will borrow you the money, but you have to pay back, and you are not paying any interest on it. But you just have to be careful of whatever you are borrowing for and done your analysis very well to show that, okay, is this a good debt? Is this a bad debt? So don't go into debt just to impress people you don't like.
Yeah.
That's very important.
It just reminded me of something. I remember I was in the church at one time, and someone came out to give a testimony that ever since their wedding, they went in debt because of their wedding.
Yes.
And it's taking them over 10 years.
To pay back.
Not even to pay back, to get out of negative into positive. Because they went to rent the horse, this, that, carriage, everything.
Exactly.
For the wedding. So going into debt for things like wedding.
You see, for some people, that day is their most important day. They don't mind
in their whole life.
In their whole, well,
even in the future.
the thing is that this is the way I look at it. And some people call me old school. I've made those comments online and people come at me. But the truth is the truth.
Yes, whether it hurts you or not.
Whether it hurts you or not. The truth is the truth. Wedding is always between two people. And probably the minister that ministers that day. All of us have just come to show you love.
Yeah, and eat jollof.
And eat jollof and fried meat. We'll take away. Whatever happens to you from that night is between the two of you. If you carry us to Dubai on debt, that is your problem.
You're the one that will be paying it back in the future.
You'll be the one that will pay it back in the future. And the fact that you pull all of us together, that is not God's blessing. God's blessing is there, whether you call us
or not,
whether you kill 10 cows or not. God has already blessed it, and the responsibility lies on the two of us that are marrying to make the marriage work. So whether you do it 100 million, whether you do it under if they are fighting war in a country today, would that stop people from wedding? No. It won't stop them.
They will just do it at home.
They'll just do it at home. I was at a wedding one time, and the couple were telling us that, because the wedding was really, really big, and I was wondering, how did these people afford this kind of wedding? And then I found out that the two of them were working in customer service. And they told us that they actually saved up for like 4 years.
Wow.
To put up a show because it is a day that they are so happy about. So if you do it by saving up your money, then that is fine. But if you now go and borrow just to make people happy on that day, or just to make yourself happy, or just for people to say this is the best wedding in town, I don't think that is worth it.
You're putting a strain on your future
on your future earnings. Like some people do wedding and they now start coming online to fundraise for what they will put inside their house.
And you think, they create WhatsApp group and start
pressuring other
everybody
people.
Else. Yeah.
You know, some of the people you are sending message to, some of them did not do a wedding as big as yours, so they'll be thinking, am I mad?
They say on your own.
So it is very, very important to look at, are we doing these things for external validation, or because one of the first bit of wealth that you can have is peace of mind.
Yes.
And that's where stoicism, minimalism comes in. If you don't need a lot to make you happy, then the chances of you going to, for example, now in Nigeria, we have a situation where a lot of people are struggling with money and all of that. And one of the big things there is that if you are happy and contented with a little, everything that comes is a plus.
It's a blessing.
It's a blessing. But if you are that kind of person that is always looking at what this man is doing or what that man is doing, you know, you want to be bigger than them, then you have a problem. Then you are putting a pressure on yourself that God has not placed on you. So it's always having that balanced mentality about things. Otherwise, you run into debt. You know, we have issues with payday loans back home. And then people are texting that this person borrowed this money, this person borrowed this money. Some of them are borrowing out of the need for it. But at the same time, they are not reading through what the interest rates are. They are just borrowing because they need the money now. And then interest rates, they are the craziest things that you need to watch out for. Like reading the terms and conditions of whatever loan you are getting to. Because if you don't and you default, they will send a message to everybody. So understanding debt as an instrument, being a double-edged sword, it can be good and it can be terrible.
Yeah.
What sends some people down the drain, even billionaires, is debt. You know, they take loans to buy an asset that is volatile, and then everything goes down. And when it goes down, where they got the money from, they are after them. And then it leads to serious crisis.
You've just said that debt is like a double-edged sword. It can be good, it can be bad. So how do we use debt in a good way to be able to build wealth? Because something I've realized is that, another thing when I came here is that I realized that so many people use credit cards.
Yes.
Even sometimes you see them in the supermarket using a credit card. And I'm thinking, why are you using a credit card in the supermarket? And someone said recently, even on this podcast, that, you know, when you come to the UK, you need to build a good credit score.
Yes.
I think you need a credit card. You need to work with that credit card to be able to build your finance in the future. So can you give us a bit more information on how that can be good or bad, and also how we can build our credit? Why do so many people use credit cards?
Okay. When I moved here, I was able to understand something. Your profile, the way you are looking at me now, I know you, you know me. Then there is another profile that you have to work on, which is how financial institutions know you.
Okay.
You can know me as a good person, that I am very steadfast, I work very, very hard, I do this and do that. But the financial institutions, they also need to know who you are. And how do they know who you are? They want to know who you are with money.
Okay.
And that is the key here. You can be a good brother, a good father, a good auntie, but how are you
May not be good
with money? So credit is a kind of way, this is how I understand this, it's kind of a way that the financial institutions see you. So if somebody has not borrowed you £100 before, it will be difficult for a lender to borrow you £500.
Okay.
Because they don't know if you've defaulted on...
If you can pay back.
If you're able to pay back.
Yeah.
You know, so what credit file is basically your behavior with debt. They'll be able to see your history with debt. Let's say, for example, you have a phone bill. When you get a phone contract, most of the time, most of us get contracts on the phone.
Yes, and monthly money goes out.
And we pay out monthly. So was there a time when you didn't pay your phone bill and then the phone company is having to chase you up and down?
Does something like that build my credit profile?
It's on your credit file.
Okay, money coming out monthly for my phone.
Yes, if you, the moment you have a credit agreement, because that phone bill that you've just taken, that phone contract that you've just taken, is a credit agreement basically.
Isn't it? But it's a direct debit, so it's a credit agreement. Okay.
Well, it's a credit agreement. It's an agreement that we will provide you this service and you will pay this amount every month.
Okay.
So that phone contract is already on your credit file, whether you like it or not.
Oh, okay.
So if you sign up with all these credit reference agencies, Experian, Equifax, I think there's another one, TransUnion. So you can use like Credit Karma or clearscore.com. You know, there are quite a couple like that out there. A lot of them are free to register. So if you register, you put your name, you put your address, you put your history. They will show you all the credit that you've had since the day you've stepped into this country.
Wow.
You know, from phone bill to credit cards to what else? Water bill, gas bill, because it is a financial contract that you've signed to say they will give you this service and you pay this amount every month. So if, as a lender now, let's say you need money to do something, you need money to do anything, and you cannot afford it, and you approach a lender to say, lender, give me this money. They will check that file. You know, they will check it to see that when they gave you £50, did you pay back? When they paid you £100, did you pay back? Why should I borrow you £500?
If you cannot pay back £50.
If you cannot pay back £50. So that is exactly what the credit file is.
Okay.
So it's always very important to build that credit file. That's what people like put a lot of focus on. Building that credit file, because you don't know when you will need some money that you cannot afford.
That's true.
And then when you go to a lender, they'll be able to look at you and say, okay, somebody has borrowed you £500, interest or no interest, you paid back. When you got an iPhone is probably like about 1,000 plus in pounds. You bought it on credit, interest free or with interest, and you paid it, you paid it back in full. Then somebody else will be able to trust you with another asset, maybe to say you want to buy a house, for example. If you have not managed, if you bought an iPhone and you could not pay back, why should someone borrow you money to buy a £200,000 house? That is where...
You see, the trouble I have wrapping my head around this idea of credit cards or credit being good is that when I think of credit cards, I think of people who max out credit cards and they end up owing so much money, because with a credit card, you're spending money you don't have. And you can get into so much trouble in the future.
That's why we're talking about it being a double-edged sword. You know, what some people, I mean, as I was saying, for religious reasons, don't want to pay interest. And interest is against their religious ethic. So what they do, whatever they spend, they pay it back before the statement date, and they don't incur any interest.
Okay, that's
so
good.
They are able to build their file without paying any interest out. And then you have people that see credit card as free money. But they do not know that if you are taking that kind of position, you can only go so far, because whatever you are doing, all these companies can see it.
Yes.
They can see your file. So if they test you with £1,000 and then you max it out and then they are struggling to get the money back, your credit score will be falling. The credit institutions can see you, and you just damage your own file.
And you're still going to be owing that money in the future.
You're still going to be owing that money in future, or they can even charge you to court. They can take it as far as charging you to court. Wow. If you cannot afford to pay it, you might have to file for bankruptcy, depending on how much money you were able to get, and it can go down really, really fast from there. So if you see it as free money, well, good luck to you, because within a few months or a few years, it will finally catch up with you. So it is a double-edged sword, and one must ensure that if you have somewhere going, and that's the most important thing. If you don't have anywhere going, you can mess it up. But if you know you have somewhere going, you want to build that profile in such a way that it is useful for you
in the future.
In the future, maybe you are a business owner, you are planning to do things, and you need a lender to support you. You know, that we, like you said, we don't have it a lot where we come from. But here, it is something that we must look after because of things that can happen along the line when you are trying to probably buy a house, or you are trying to get into business, or you are trying to get some liquidity to grow your. So building that file is very, very important, and understanding how the lenders see you as a person financially.
I think not even just having to buy a house or business in the future. I think having that in case of an emergency, like you said, no one knows how things will be tomorrow.
Yes.
So having that backup in case of an emergency, in case something just happens.
That is important. Even in the way once you build your financial strong wall, is that you should also have emergency fund somewhere. You should not bank on credit to finance your emergency. One of the first rules, so many books have talked about it, it makes so much sense as well, is that once you start earning, your first job once you are earning, is to make sure, first of all, you are not living below what is coming in. You're not living above what's coming in.
Yeah.
Your expenses, which is very, very hard. Some people, when they get some income, they just want to go and get a place of their own. You are stretching yourself too far. If you have to stay where you are, maybe at a parent's place or something, if you have to do that for a while, do that before you start moving out to say you want to get your own place because your expenses just blows up. Or some people get increment in salary, and the first thing they want to do is to move to a bigger house where they pay more rent. You are just like lifestyle creep, they call it. As your income is creeping, your lifestyle is increasing. You're like, so you want to make sure that you keep your expenses as low as possible, even when you are getting higher compensation in your job. So once you now do that, once you maintain that basic principle, the next thing is to save up emergency funds.
Okay.
Which, depending on how you want to call it, 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses. Because of emergency. Emergency can happen. Let's forget about us here that we have NHS or going to the hospital. If you are in a country that doesn't have that kind of thing, anything can happen. The child can be hot in the morning. It can be hot in the afternoon. You have to go and do this. The tire can burst. Different things can happen. The roof can leak and things like that. You don't want to go into debt to fix those kind of emergency. So the first basic principle is, number one, spend less than you earn. Number two, build an emergency fund, which is 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses.
Okay, so let's say my monthly income is £2,000. All right.
£2,000, yes.
So can you help us break this into what we need, like an emergency fund and everything?
Well, if your monthly income is £2,000, that's your monthly income. But your monthly expenses is also very important.
Okay. So monthly expenses includes things like
your rent, your bills, telephone, internet, electricity, heating, water, all those things that you need to use. So if you are getting an income of £2,000, living in London is, first of all, very difficult.
Okay, it's not very realistic.
It's not very realistic.
Okay, let's get to... So if we have that income, we have to move outside London.
Well, you can stay in London if you are staying with your parents, or if, let's say, you are in a room share or you are in a house share, and it still works out well for you. Because that is very, very important. And I know there is a lot of things going on about inflation and things like that. Unfortunately, we don't control these things. We don't control what the government is going to do. We don't control the interest rate. The interest rate was very, very low from, let's say, 2008, after the 2008 financial crash. Interest rate was really, really low, like 0.0000111111. But now we are at 5%. And because it's at 5%, a lot of people have problems with their mortgages because they are on variable rates and they couldn't afford to pay the mortgage. Those kind of things we don't control. We can't control it. But what can we control is how we can manage what we are getting, how we can increase our income, how we can do a side hustle. Some of us want one source of income to pay for everything that we do. But for some of us, it might not be that case. It might be that you might need to do some things on the side, maybe deliver Uber in the evening, Uber Eats in the evening. If that is what it takes, that is what it takes. That is the mentality I've adopted anyway. I'll do whatever it takes as much as I can to make sure I don't, I'm still sane.
So what percentage of your income should be your expenses?
That is subjective as well. But what you want is a situation where, let's say you are getting £2,000.
Yeah.
You want to keep. Some people say rent should not be more than 40% of your income.
Okay.
Some say it shouldn't be more than 50% of your income.
So let's say 40-50 then.
40-50 then.
Yeah.
So for £2,000, 40 to 50%, we are looking at 800 to £1,000.
£1,000, yeah.
So the rest of the £1,000, how much do you put away for your bills? £300-400. You can see that £2,000.
So 1,400 is already gone.
Is already gone. So
only 600 left.
Only 600 left. So it now depends on how aggressive do you want to be in terms of investing in your future. Out of that 600, do you have an emergency fund yet? If you don't have an emergency fund, before you even start investing at all, you want to make sure you look after that emergency fund.
How much should your emergency fund be?
So if we said your monthly expenses is, say, 1,500, your emergency fund should be around £4,500, which is 3 months, and then 6 months, it's about £7,000.
So your emergency fund should be enough to be able to take care
of your expenses
for a month if you have no money.
Yes, but we want you to have 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses.
3 to 6 months, okay.
Of your monthly expenses.
Should be your emergency fund.
Should be your emergency fund. So once you start working, the first thing you have to look after is your emergency fund. And it is not another person's emergency. It is your own emergency fund. Because as they normally say, wahala no dey finish. Problem does not finish. So that money is for you, just in case you lose your job. I mean, I work in freelance a lot. And as a freelancer, if you don't work, you don't get paid. You don't get any holiday pay. You don't get anything like that. So for someone like myself, that emergency fund is very, very important. Otherwise, if anything happens to me, let's say the economy crashed, for example. We had the 2008 financial crisis. Nobody could really, really predict it. So if I don't have anything saved and my work gets terminated, what would you do? Before I buckle up again, before I start another job, before I do something, I have to look after myself. And that's where that emergency fund comes in. Because there is nobody that knows what will happen tomorrow. That's why it is very, very important.
So you're saying everybody should have an emergency fund?
It is critical. As much as it is very, very critical.
Money that can take care of you for 3 to 6 months.
3 to 6 months. Your expenses. And it's not like your wants, not like what you want, what you need. Things that you must do every month. We all have it. And that goes down to budgeting as well. A lot of us just let money leave the account. I know there are a lot of bank apps now that help you to categorize your earnings to say this went to rent, this went to... We also need to sit down and have a clear understanding of this money that left my account, what was it for? This money that left my account, what was it for? This money, what that... So you have a full picture of how much you are spending on monthly basis. Because that gives a lot of data. It gives you that picture. It's just like saying you are tracking how long you spend on your phone. It will tell you spend 2 hours on Facebook, you spend 3 hours on Twitter, you spend 2 hours on Instagram. Then you will know. So if money is going this way and it is not your rent, it is not your bill, it is for maybe you are funding Naira Bet. I say, so this is how much that I am spending on betting every month. So having that understanding in terms of journaling your expenses and knowing, because if you don't sit down and know, money is very, very serious, as we said earlier. Whether you like it or not, it will affect you.
You will deal with money.
You have
or
to.
Money will deal with you.
Money will deal with you, whichever way.
As you're talking, I'm just thinking, do I have an emergency fund for 3 to 6 months? And it's really important because anything can happen. We've seen with COVID crisis, anything can happen.
We saw 2008 financial crisis. We saw COVID in 2020. Anything can happen. And
you can't depend on someone else to take care of you. Something should happen.
Even who?
Wow.
For a lot of us that don't have parents that can say, take this cash injection or stuff like that, who is going to look after us? And that is why even being unemployed at this kind of time is so painful. Because if no income is coming in, how do you even plan? Wow. So it is critical for all of us that are earning to make sure we we divide things and say, this is where we want this to go, this is what this is for, this is what this is for. Because they say, if you don't have a plan for yourself, you will fit into somebody else's plan. And what have they got planned for you? Not much.
You don't know what they have planned for you.
You don't know what they have planned for you.
There was something you mentioned when you were talking about emergency fund. You also mentioned investment.
Yes.
So when I heard the word investment, many people, when they heard the word investment, it's like, oh, something all these rich old men do.
Yes.
So do you invest? Can you tell us a bit about investing?
Investing is a lifesaver. Investing is so critical.
Why?
We talked about health and wealth earlier. What are, like, we have work goals, we have spiritual goals, we have all those goals.
Yeah.
Money goals are also valid goals. You know, there was a story about a janitor in the US. And he's a janitor. He was working low-end jobs. And by the time this guy passed away at 90, he gave the local library millions of dollars.
Wow.
And they were wondering, how did he do it?
Get that money. Yeah.
And the only thing that he did was that he took a portion of his income and he was investing it every month.
Wow.
So investment is very, very critical because number one good reason to invest is your pension. Like, by the time most of us are like 60, we can't move the way we used to move anymore. We can't earn the way we used to earn anymore. So whether you are rich now or you are poor now, if you reach that age, definitely no income is coming in.
How would you look after yourself?
How would you look after yourself?
And you can't depend on your children that much because you don't know.
Not this generation's children.
Not the TikTokers.
No, well, even some of us, like at this age, some of us are rebelling, like, no. You know, they will ask you, you were working, why didn't you save,
money
for your old age? So, when you get to that age, whether you have 10 more years on life, whether you have 20, and if God bless you with long life, you pass away at 90. That is 30 years of not earning any money. And your expenses are, let's say, 50% of what it was when you were 40.
Wow.
How do you plan to do that? And that is what we seriously have to think about. We have seen so many things of old people trying to crowdfund for ailments, for hospital bills, it is a lot. And not all of it is because they did not save. Some of it is because the value of the currency they saved in depreciated. Or there is so much inflation in the market that the cost of looking after them, the money does not have any value.
Money has become worthless.
So as an African, it's always important the currency you are saving in. Unfortunately, it is as important as saving as well. You get what I'm saying there? Like, it's something that I say with a huge sense of responsibility, because when I look at what is happening with a lot of our currencies at home and how it moves in relation to the US dollar, I'm always thinking, like, what is going on? So I delved into my books. I read about it. What is going on? How does this work? What exactly is happening? And there were some few things that I just gathered that blew my mind. Okay. After the Second World War, the US dollar became the reserve currency of the world. So everybody is looking for dollars.
Yeah.
You know, even all countries are saving in dollars. So if you go to China, for example, there's something they call foreign reserve. China has, let's say, like 3 trillion US dollars that they have saved, you know.
Are you saying the UK is also looking for dollars? Because I thought the UK pound is higher than the dollar.
It is higher than the dollar. It's not about the parity value. It is just about the currency that the world wants to use.
Okay.
You know, the currency that even Nigeria, we are also saving in dollars.
For dollars. Wow.
You know, every country has dollar saving because the dollar is the reserve currency of the whole world. So that first stuck with me, and I was thinking, okay. So if everybody is saving in US dollars, right, now I get this. That means the value is stable to some extent. Even though there is also inflation in the US dollar value. Like things are also increasing. The dollar cost of everything is increasing.
Yeah.
So how do you beat that inflation? That means even if you save in US dollars, that dollars must be working for you. You must put it to work.
Yeah.
It's not that you just save in dollars and just leave it like that, because the phone that we bought $2 3 years ago is now $5. So there's also inflation in the dollar. You know, we have inflation in Naira, or whatever our home currency is. There's also inflation in the dollar as well. Now, how do you put your dollars to work?
To work, yeah. What do we do?
There are different type of ways to invest. There are different asset classes. There's real estate, which is buying land, you know, waiting for it to appreciate. But the funny thing is that if you look at what happened in our country recently, Nigeria, when, for example, the day that they took the Naira peg off and the Naira just fell to like 2,000, you almost got to 2,000 recently. It was about 1,800, you know. So let me now give you a very small example in that end. Let's say when the pound was like 500, for example, let's say when the pound was 500, you bought a land of 1,000 pounds. Okay, you take 1,000 pounds to buy a land when the pound was 500.
500 Naira.
And how much did you spend there? You bought the land 500,000 Naira. You bought the land. You used 1,000 pounds. Okay. And now, all of a sudden, the land appreciated, right? The land is now selling for 1 million Naira.
Wow.
Okay? But the time that the land is selling for 1 million Naira, 1 pound is 1,000 Naira. You see that all through that time, your 1,000 pounds, you didn't get anything on it. So now imagine when the pound was 1,005.
Hey.
You've actually lost money.
Yeah.
You know, it is worth less.
You've
even
lost
though
money,
it's worth
lost time, lost everything.
You know what I mean? Even though it's worth more in Naira,
globally,
it is worth less in pound. It is worth less in dollars. That is the disadvantage that currency has. If for people that are back home, you know. So as a young person, I started thinking, okay, how can people from where we come from have access to the global market? Being able to hold assets in US dollars just like every other person in the world. Because whether we like it or not, our contemporaries in the West, they are not facing the same thing that we are facing. These dollars that we are looking for, it is their own daily currency that they are using that they are using to transact. So if I want to buy an iPhone now in Nigeria, for example, the iPhone is not priced in Naira. The iPhone is priced in dollars.
Yes.
So whatever the equivalent is in Naira, that is what I have to pay.
And you need to work more to even make that money, to be able to buy the thing that is...
To be able to buy the same thing that everybody is using around the world. More. If your currency is falling down, then it's a huge problem for you. And the craziest thing is that how many things do we produce that we use at home? Most of the things we use are imported. So it creates a kind of headache to think, wow. So if the fuel that we use is imported and it's in dollars, if the phone that I use is imported and is priced in dollars,
if basic household necessities
are imported and they are priced in dollars, that means that I have to work extra harder to be able to afford those kind of things. So now look at my investments. Even if like my health, the kind of operation that I need to do when I grow older has to be like a foreign doctor that was brought to Nigeria, or somebody that has expertise that is charging in dollars. You can see how expensive it is not to be exposed to the dollar in itself. But as we said earlier, there has never been a time in the history of the world that you can hold assets that are dollarized. So there are different ways. There are different asset classes. There is real estate, there is stock market, there is bonds. You know, you can own U.S. bonds in such a way that when you buy U.S. bonds, the U.S. government will pay you back with some coupons for holding the bonds. But the one I really, really love to look at a lot, that I'm very, very much interested in, is the stock market. And it is something that we don't talk about at home as well. Like, people from our background, we don't even understand what stock is. We don't even, like, it is not even up for discussions. And these are the kind of things that we have to be teaching people, very young people, to say, look, you can own these companies. You can be a part owner of these companies. You are using Google every day. Do you know that Google's parent company is called Alphabet? You can own a share in Alphabet.
Even from home in Nigeria?
From Nigeria.
From your living room?
From your living room. There was a day I was flying. I can't remember where I was flying from. As I landed at Heathrow, I was midair. You know, there is no service unless you pay. I didn't pay for the internet service. As I landed at Heathrow, my phone just pinged. And it was like, oh, this company you bought their shares paid you some dividends.
Wow. And
that is a kind of way to think of building wealth as well. As I was talking about Facebook earlier, 2022, Facebook shares were trading for $99 US. 3 days ago, Facebook was trading for 470 something US dollars.
Wow.
That is more than 4 times what you paid for it. So there has to be a plan to say, okay, I want to grow my wealth by owning a piece. There was a book that I read. I think the title was Owning a Piece of the World. Like you are invested in the world because you are also using this product. I make that argument a lot.
Everybody's using it.
You are using Apple. But are you an investor in Apple?
Or are you just giving them your money?
There are some people that are buying Apple shares, that has Apple shares as part of their retirement plan.
Some people are buying Apple shares. Other people are buying Apple phones.
Yeah.
At 13, 14, 15.
As it's updating, you are updating with it. You know, we talked about Louis Vuitton, Moet and Chandon. It is a stock on the stock exchange. So some people own Louis Vuitton shares. Some people own Louis Vuitton bag to impress other people.
And I know some people who have eaten nothing but Indomie for a month just to buy those bags.
You know what I mean? So you might be buying Nike shoes, but some people own Nike shares.
Yeah. So who is the smarter one? The one who's buying the shoes or the one who owns the share? Because the one that's owning the share, you're even paying into it. You're giving them money.
Exactly. Wow. So, and there was a time when we were excluded from this market, maybe due to one thing or the other. We are not able to own these shares. We are not able to do that. But now, it is possible for anyone in Nigeria to own this kind of assets, to build your wealth through there. If you bought Apple shares maybe 5 years ago, you will have seen that it has grown in the last 5 years. Maybe you've made 2x your money. So that means that you are making the money work for you.
So Toyyib, my question right now, and I'm sure everybody watching, the question is, how do we do this?
Okay. Like I said, I'm not an investment advisor, but I'll give you a clue as to what I have read on and how it works. So, as an individual, you may not be able to, there are lots of people on Broad Street in Lagos, on Wall Street in New York, that stock analysis is their day job. They analyze a stock, they do this, they do this, they do that. You might not be able to do that.
Yeah, you might not have that knowledge.
You don't have that knowledge to do that. So if you buy a Facebook share, for example, every investment you make in the stock market has a risk in it. But if you buy a Facebook share, for example, you don't know if Facebook, we are only talking about it because Facebook went up. There are some shares that went down as well. So one of the best ways, Warren Buffett normally talks about this, and a lot of investors talk about it. And the data shows that a lot of investors, a lot of analysts do not beat the index. And what is the index? The index is a basket of stocks. So, and the biggest index that I know of is the S&P 500 index, which is a collection of the top 500 US companies.
Okay. Can you give us some names of some of those companies in there?
You got Apple there, you got Microsoft there, you got Tesla there, you got, I think Airbnb was there recently. I think Netflix is there as well, if I can remember correctly. So Netflix is another one. You watch Netflix,
you're
paying monthly, but you are not an investor in Netflix shares. So as you are watching, some people are making money. You are getting the entertainment. Some people are getting
They're laughing loud.
They are laughing loud to the bank. So what exactly do you want to do in that regard? So all of those companies, the top 500 companies in the US, all of them are already in that index.
So that's the S&P 500.
The S&P 500 index.
Okay.
So let's say if you buy a $50 worth of S&P 500 index, you've bought into the top 500 companies.
And that's all the Netflix, the Facebook, all those things.
All of them are in there.
Wow, okay.
So, and if you now say, okay, what is, if you want to say, what is my risk for doing that kind of investment? Then you now track back and say, let us look at what S&P 500 has done in the last 50 years. So if you want to convince me now to do it, I would need to ask you, what has it done in the last 50 years?
Yeah.
And the S&P 500, over the last 50, even 100 years, has done an average of 10% return. So that means there are some years that it did minus 20, there are some years it did plus 30, but over the last 50 years, it has done an average of 10%. So that means we'll do the compound interest calculator now just for you to have a look at it. And there is also a very important part of investing in stocks, which is that it does not pay for you to be a short-term investor. And that's why emergency fund is very, very important. Because the market moves based on different things.
Yes.
News.
You cannot control it.
You cannot control how the market
Even
moves.
one person's tweet can change
the market. You saw Elon Musk when he tweets sometimes, Tesla go up, Tesla go down. Those kind of things can happen. But over a long time, the market has always rewarded the patient. And that's why it's always good to start early as well. So if you start for your children, start early for them, start investing in the S&P 500. And we can now do a check and see what can happen if you do this kind of thing. You can grab your phone and let's check it.
Okay.
So if you go on to Google.
Yes.
And just say compound interest calculator.
Compound interest calculator. Is that the calculatorsite.com?
Yeah. Just see the calculator site. That's perfect.
Okay.
So,
Mm-hmm.
right. So, initial investment,
Yes.
we'll put 0.
Okay.
And then interest rate,
Mm-hmm.
we'll put 10. And that's yearly.
Yearly. Okay.
Okay. And one thing that is important is that a lot of people will say, I don't want interest. It doesn't want interest. The interest in this case is the same thing as return.
Okay.
It doesn't mean like interest for religious reasons. You know, there are some Muslims that want to say, if we don't want to do anything that is related to interest. But in this case, interest means return. So if you buy a stock of Facebook and Facebook grows from $99 to from $100 to say $110, that 10% that grew in the price is the return. But
that you keep.
That's the return for you for owning the share. So that's just what that means, not necessarily interest. So deposit. So we've done yearly, right? We've done 10% yearly.
Yeah. So there's years here. How many years?
How many years? Let's say you start investing at, let's say as soon as you start working. Let's say you start investing at 20. Let's say as soon as you start working, you start at 20 or 25.
Okay.
So from 25 to, let's say 65. So let's say 40 years.
40 years, yes.
40 years. And how much are you depositing?
How much?
So let's say you are putting in $1,000 or let's say $2,000.
Every month?
Every year.
Okay. 2,000.
You have to be earning so much to do 2,000 every month.
Every year. 2,000 every year.
Every year. So deposits are made in which period? Say the end period.
Yes.
And deposit increase, let's leave that because we are not adding anything.
Okay.
Compounded interval, it will be yearly.
Yearly. What I have here is quarterly, bi-monthly, monthly.
Half a year, and then you see yearly.
Yes, I've got that. Yeah.
Yearly. So let's click calculate.
Calculate. Wow. Projection for 40 years. So I see all these big numbers. But what
it is your money. So what it is saying is that.
What's this big green number?
The big green number is that if you invest $2,000 every year for 40 years at 10% compound interval, you are going to have $885,000 sitting with you in retirement.
Wow. Well, how much is that? How much I put in? How much did I? So over 40 years, $2,000 that's 80,000.
That's 80,000. Yeah, that's what it tells you there.
So over 40 years,
I've only put 80,000 in,
and I'm getting 885,185.1.
Exactly.
Thank you for making it this far in the video. We really appreciate you for watching. If you have an inspirational story that you'd like us to share on our podcast, please drop us an email. Our email can be found in the description below.
So if you now come back now, look at the yearly breakdown. Year 1 is $0, right? Mm-hmm. At the end of year 1, you put in $2,000, right? And what did you get? Look at line 2, you see that it is 200. That's what you got there.
Yes.
And then you add that 2,000 to that 200.
Wow.
That's 4,000. The accrued interest is 200. And then you invest that 4,200. And then that 4,200 will accrue £420.
Wow.
Plus another 6,000. And you now go all the way down. How much have you put in? Look at how much you got. And that's how it's calculating it every year.
So it's like over 100%? Is it?
That's not over 100%. You only put in £80,000.
No, but I'm getting back. My math is not so good, but over that time.
Over 40 years, your $80,000
has turned into
times 10.
$885,000. That's a lot.
That is a lot. And those are the things that we don't talk about.
Wow. So I don't know if you're seeing the numbers on the screen. Maybe you can take a second, you can pause the video or something, and you can check it.
And just check it yourself. Just 10% return. Just 10% return turns your 2,000 annual investment into 800,000 US dollars.
Not 800,000, 885,000.
Now imagine if you can do 2,500, or imagine if you can do $3,000 every year at 10% return.
Your money is working for you.
Your money is working for you while you are sleeping. And that's why someone said the principle for wealth is, first of all, have good family around you. Enjoy what you are doing. Enjoy what you do for work. Find joy in what you do for work. If you are not finding joy, have a plan on how to find joy in what you do for work. And once you are happy with what you do for work, spend less than you earn and make sure you are putting something away to be working for you. Wow. And Warren Buffett has a very classic quote on this thing. He said, if you don't, how did he put it? He said, if you don't find a way to find money to work for you while you are sleeping, you are going to work till you die. And that is very simple, because if you build a house now and somebody is renting that house, that means you are making money while you are sleeping.
Yeah.
If you are a shareholder in Apple, while you are sleeping in Nigeria, somebody is buying Apple in China. Somebody is buying Apple in Australia. Out of that sale,
and they'll definitely buy every year.
They'll buy every year. Out of they've commissioned the glasses now. They will sell it maybe for $400 or $500. People will buy it. As they are buying it, as a shareholder, you are entitled money to a small bit of that profit.
But you're still making something from it.
You're still making something from it. And that is how people have built wealth. When I went into finance class and I was studying finance, I was seeing that some people, as soon as their child is born, they open an investment account for that child.
This is the same type of account.
Yeah, they open an investment account for that child, and they are putting money buying S&P 500 for that child.
Wow.
And that's why you see that some people are 20 years old, they are already having a nest egg of £30,000 or 20,000 US dollars.
Because of their parents.
Because their parents have the foresight to be investing for them.
Wow.
So these are the things that we don't discuss in our community. In terms of home ownership, go and look at the ladder. You see where we are there. In terms of people that have stocks, that have assets in these companies that do the bags, that do the chain, that do the champagne, that do the phones, that we don't even invest in it. If we invest in it, we want our money now. And that is not how wealth works. You have to have an emergency fund and then leave your investment to grow. And one big thing that happens to us a lot as well is that we are always fooled by these people that come with 50% interest. You double your money in 1 month. It is never working. There is rarely any investment that can give you that crazy return.
It's funny, from what you've said, it's like, okay, making wealth is a slow process.
It is a slow process.
But then you see people go into things like cryptocurrency and, they say, they're millionaires now because they did this. What do you think about that?
The important part of that is understanding the risk of what you are getting into. People are making money in cryptocurrency. That is true. But people are also losing money in cryptocurrency.
I know some people that have lost like £30,000.
When the market crashed, when some cryptocurrency folds up, people lose their life savings. And that is where you have to understand the volatility of the kind of asset you are trying to buy. Real estate is an asset. Stocks are an asset. Bond is an asset. Crypto is an asset. Gold is an asset. Of all those ones that I've listed, cryptocurrency is the most volatile. It can go up this morning and come down tomorrow. Up, down. So people, you will always tell you that you can keep cryptocurrency, but as part of your investment portfolio. It has to be a small percentage. It has to be the money you can afford to lose.
Because just imagine this £80,000 that in 40 years you've put in this, that's been 880 something thousand.
Yes.
Go and put it in crypto. You don't know if the next day is going to go.
When there was one coin that went bust, Luna, people had their life savings in there. And those are the kind of things that make people go into serious depression.
Yeah, so commit suicide.
It's just not. Warren Buffett has this quote. I love his quotes a lot. He said, rule number 1 of finance is never lose money. That's rule number 1. He said, rule number 2 is never forget rule number 1. Because those assets are volatile. It's not that people do not make money from it, but do you have enough knowledge to deal with that kind of volatility?
Yeah.
And if you read Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, one of the things that he talked about is that finance is much more behavioral than all these calculations and spreadsheets that we see. He said there is no other industry in the world apart from finance where people with behavioral traits like being disciplined, you don't need to know too much calculations. You just need to be consistent in making sure that I am putting in that £100 every month. I'm using it to buy the S&P 500. As long as you are disciplined like that, I introduced some parents to the stocks and shares ISA for their children. And what they've been putting in every month was just like £40, £50. The same amount of money you used to buy takeaway.
Yeah.
And they opened the account after 3 years and they're like, is it the money that we're putting in that is like big like this? I said, that is how it is.
Wow.
Just automate it every month and be disciplined about it. Do whatever else you have to do. Get a good job. Do your side hustle. Have your emergency saving. Yes. Enjoy your life. Enjoy what you do. Cut your coat according to your size. Yeah. And just manage and then look after your future by putting in investments.
So what you're saying by this S&P 500 you've showed me is that by doing this, does that mean I own, percentage of some of these companies?
You own it.
Like Facebook.
So
by investing in this 500.
By investing in Vanguard S&P 500.
Yes.
You own all those assets. You own a piece of all those assets. Because if you look at Facebook, for example, one of the biggest shareholders of Facebook is Vanguard.
Wow.
And that is because once they take all the funds together, they go buy assets in all these companies. So if you own Vanguard, you own a piece of all those shares.
Wow.
So in the UK and even the US, they call it VUSA, VUSA. That is the Vanguard S&P 500.
Sorry, I don't think we had mentioned the company before.
Yes.
So this Vanguard, so you can go to vanguard.com, right? That's where you do the S&P 500.
If you are in the UK, there are several platforms that you can access Vanguard. You can access Vanguard on Vanguard's website itself. But you can also access Vanguard on trading platforms like Trading 212, all of those other trading platforms as well, or investment platforms, I'll call it, because you are not trading. You are not a day trader. You are not somebody that is buying a share waiting for it to go up to sell. No, you are investing. So investment platforms like Trading 212, there are lots of them. You can access Vanguard through there as well.
What if I'm in Nigeria? Am I still able to buy this? Or
Definitely. Here we call it VUSA. In there are platforms in Nigeria as well. And that's why I said it is one of the best things that has happened to us in this generation is because we are able to access the global market from anywhere in the world due to the advancement in technology. So in Nigeria, for example, I have no affiliations with all of these companies. I have no affiliation with Vanguard. It's just part of what I've studied. There are a lot of companies like Invest Bamboo.
Okay.
It's a platform.
Okay.
Invest Bamboo is a platform. Trove Finance is a platform. I think Cheaper Cash is another platform. So what you want to do, first of all, is to investigate the platform that you want to use to access the market. investigate them, make sure they are legit, make sure they are registered and all of that. Your funds are protected. Once you are now happy with that, you can use their platform and search for VOO. So VOO is the same thing as the Vanguard S&P 500 ETF. And then once you buy it, I think all of those platforms allow you to invest fractionally. And fractional means that if VOO is like $700 a share, even if you have like $50, you can still buy a portion of VOO, which makes it easier for you to buy with even a small amount of money. So then you can now look at, okay, let's say like they charge you some fees and all of that. The good thing about it is that if you invest for a long time, all those fees do not matter.
Wow.
Because your asset is growing. You want to get the one that doesn't charge you as much fees as possible because you want to keep as much of your money as possible. But if they are charging you a fee to access an asset that is going to grow over time, it is worth it. It is worth it. I mean, here in the UK, we have platforms that charges zero fees. Like Trading 212 charges zero fees. Vanguard platform itself charges a very, very small amount of money. So, but back home, you may not have that luxury. You may have to pay some of those platforms a small fee when you transact.
Well, it's still worth it
but
to
it
just
is still
get
worth
into it.
Getting
now.
into it because time in the market is even much more important than timing the market. You can see what 40 years does to us. If you do 20 years, you see how low that money is.
Wow.
And the only reason it is low is because you were not in there for a long time. If we do that exercise again now, just put 10 years. And you see that the money you get is very, very small. But it compounds over time. So if you are working now, start thinking, what is my pension plan? What is going to happen for me? Can I be putting $50 away every month? Can I be putting $100 away every month? Can I afford to do that? It is very, very important because, as we said, health and wealth, whether you think about it or you don't think about it, it will affect you. So what are the plans that we have?
So Toyyib, you mentioned buying a house, but some experts out there have said that there's no point buying a house, that buying a house is a waste of money. So what's your own opinion on it? Rent or buy? What do we do?
The analysis is very personal, very, very personal. And one of the proponents of not buying a house is that if you are very young, you don't want to tie yourself to a location.
Yes.
You want to be able to move to where the opportunities are.
Especially with that thing you mentioned about location,
about location.
Going to a location where your value or the money you get from your value is bigger.
Is bigger. So it is always subjective. If what people say is that if you buy a house, you can get more return for your money, like if you put it in the stock market, than tying it down to buy a house.
Okay.
And most of the time, people buy a house with some debt in terms of mortgage. So they are saying rather than tying yourself down with mortgage and debt, you are better off putting that money consistently in the stock market, and then the stock market lets the money grow. But the other proponents that say you should buy a house is that if you are already in a place, okay, let's say you are living in London, for example, you are able to get a job in London. You like London. You want to raise your family in London. There's nothing that stops you from buying a house in London because if you are renting in London, it is quite expensive to rent in London.
Yes.
Anyways, you might as well be using that money as equity. And then the other proponents will say, how about every other expenses that you have on the house apart from the rent?
Yes.
So you really, it is a very hard conclusion to make that say buy rent. You really have to sit down and work the numbers out. We did the 40-year calculation of what it takes to put $2,000 away in the S&P 500 at 10%. Okay, you will now sit down and look at it to say, how much does this house cost me? Or how much will this house cost me? You have to do that analysis very well and say, okay, I'll pay this amount for rent anyways. Am I paying any excess for owning this house that I can put invested in somewhere else? And people still look at the equity on the house as well and say, in the next 40 years, it is very likely for this house to be worth this much. So if I paid so in terms of mortgage or in terms of like mortgage basically for this house is now so in value, that means that it is actually worth it. So it is not a simple answer. But one thing that I think resonates with me is that if you are still very young and you think your work can take you to places where you can earn more, you can decide to rent.
Yes.
If you are not married yet, if you are not raising family yet, tying yourself down to a mortgage and buying a house might be a little bit, over the top, because you are still young in your career. You don't know who your partner is. You don't know where you are going to meet interesting people. You don't know the place where you are going to settle yet. You are still exploring. So if you tie yourself down to a mortgage or to a house, to a location, it might be too much for you as a young person, because you want to move around, earn as much as possible. There are a lot of people moving to Dubai now to earn tax-free money based on what their career path is. So if you are now holding a mortgage, tying you down to a particular location, it's choking you and you are not able to move, that might be a cause of concern. But if you run the numbers, and that is why it is very, very important to run the numbers. So if you own a house, look at what the trend of housing is in that particular area over the last 20 years. What is the average house price 20 years ago? What is the average house price now? What is the median? I think median is always very good. What is the median house price? What is the median house price now? Because apart from London and some key areas, there are some places where house prices do not increase the way they increase in London. The value of the house. So that's where sitting down and working the numbers are actually very, very important.
Yeah.
So having a roof over your head, that is very critical. But if you want to rent or buy, it is quite subjective based on what age are you as a person, what stage are you in your life, in terms of family, in terms of work, in terms of career. So that will now determine to say, okay, like if you are in your 40s, do you want to commit to a 20, 30-year mortgage, or you want to continue to rent?
So even in your old age, you'll still be trying to pay.
There is a lot of things to consider. But the most important thing, which still ties into the discussion we've been having all this while, is putting the numbers down, being intentional about it. How much is this house going to cost me, apart from the mortgage, apart from the rent? What is this house costing me? Because there are some houses that you rent as well, that the bills are not inclusive. So all of that, put that into factor. If you own the house, there are some people that pay more in rent than owning the place.
Wow.
There are some places that you pay more as rent than owning the place, and it makes sense for you to buy. But the downside of buying is that you are tied to the property. It's difficult to sell a house. Houses are not easy to sell.
Yeah.
They take time before you sell it. So when you move to another place and the house is empty, you are still actually paying the mortgage on the house, whichever way you used to acquire that house. You are still paying for that house whilst you are trying to get something else somewhere. So running the numbers is very, very important.
Yeah.
But then when you know where you are in your career, are you still opening to meeting people? Do you want to wake up tomorrow and find yourself in New York? Then maybe buying a house that ties you down is not the best idea. But if you sit down and run the numbers, what is average house prices? What is median house prices? What is the trend on housing? What will be the cost of me owning this place? When you put those numbers together, you'll be able to make an informed decision on whether to buy or to rent.
Another thing I'd want to ask in relation to houses is, like, as a Nigerian, if you don't own a place, or you don't, as an Igbo person, what I've seen with most Igbo people is that if you don't build a house in your village, then you're nothing. You're useless.
Yes.
So What do you think about that financially? Because you see people go through so much trouble just to be able to afford to build a house in their village when they're not even living in Nigeria.
There is something like that is cultural, and it brings you joy. Going back home at Christmas and you are staying in your own house. Those kind of joy cannot be quantified in money terms, because it's part of what makes you fulfilled as a person. Like the American dream that they used to talk about as well.
The white picket fence and all of that.
You know, so the American dream for most people, or the UK dream, is they say, own a house, own a house, own a house. It gives some kind of fulfillment to say, I own a house. So in that sense, you cannot put a value to it because it is deeply
in your culture.
It's
part of you.
It's part of you.
Okay.
Then you now make the financial part of it to say, how big do I want that house to be? Because some people might have a big mansion that costs so much money.
It was gathering dust.
You see what I mean? So if you want to still be happy and keep still being financially disciplined, you could have a modest place. You know, a modest place is not too big, it's not too bad, it doesn't cost you so much financially, and your family can go there at the end of the year. But you are not there comparing your house with
your neighbors.
This house. Say, that house is this, that house is that. As long as you are happy having a modest place, everybody's going to sleep on one bed, everybody's going to have a big yard to play, everybody's going to enjoy, and you are not out there comparing yourself compete with other people. Then it is the competition. Like they say, comparison is a thief of joy. It is the comparison that actually makes us feel less of who we are.
That makes us spend more than we can spend.
That makes us spend more
just
than we
to
can
compete
spend.
with other people.
For the cultural bit, we can do culture. As long as it's a small house, we play outside, we cook outside, we enjoy, everybody is happy. And it is not a big financial strain, because you have to think about where you live yourself, which is not the village, where you are making money, you have costs building up there. Your family, your school fees, everything is building up there. And then the house at home that you want to be committing to build, that is a cost in itself. And that doesn't mean that emergency costs will not happen where you live. So you are stretching yourself financially in so many places. So you have to give yourself time. You have to be structural about it, to say, okay, I want to do this over this amount of years. There is no rush to say, this person is building his house, I also want to build my house at that time. Or this person, we went to the same school together, he has finished his house, I also want to finish my house before. Those are the kind of things that drive us really, really crazy.
Yes.
And like I said,
us so much.
Exactly. And with what happened to me, which I used as an example earlier, if anything happens to you, everything that you hold to heart, you're going to drop it like this. We all came here with nothing, and we are going to go with nothing. So the properties, the land, this, that, we are not taking anything with us. So let us plan it gently. Let us walk the plan, and let us just live our lives and be happy.
Wow.
That's the way to go about it.
Looking at that money, when we did the calculator, the money looks very enticing. So what if I say, okay, instead of waiting for 40 years, maybe the next 5 years, let me use that money there to buy a nice car. Let me use it there to buy this, buy the way you're looking at me.
You can surely do that. And that's why we look at what is your investment goal. For some people, maybe after 20 or 30 years, they want to use it to buy a house. For some people, they want to use that kind of money to do that. But you must have an investment philosophy. And that philosophy is that, what do I actually want to do? What am I investing for?
Am I keeping the money for my pension in the future when I'm old and I don't have the energy to take care of myself?
Yes.
Or am I keeping the money to do wedding or?
Yes. So it is always very important. You have to start with the end in mind. Say, this is where I want to end up. This is how I want to map that plan. That is very, very critical. And you have to be disciplined enough not to let different things sway you away from that plan. If you are planning to keep it for your pension, keep it for your pension. If you want to use it to buy a car, in the next 5 years, you can use it. But if you need it that soon, why put it in the stock market? Because the stock market is good for long-term thinking.
Yeah.
It is not a fast, get-rich-quick scheme. And that's why I always want to get people, they say, if I buy it now, where should I sell it? You are not selling. In fact, you are holding. That is the way you want to look at it. When we talked about Facebook, I think Facebook was selling for like $200 per share. And then there was some queries that I don't know, like I said, different things swayed the market. And then the price dropped from $200 per share to like $99 in that 2022. And then I think someone saw me talk about it and it was like, that Facebook that you talked about, the price has dropped to $99. I said, well, it is only dropping. You are only affected by it if you want to sell it. Me, I don't plan to sell it. I plan to hold it.
Yeah, because you don't know the future.
Now that he's 475, he has not said anything. I've not heard anything from him. He has not messaged me. But because that time it fell. And that's what you have to understand with the stock market. The market goes up and it goes down. During COVID, the market went down. Everybody was like, the stock market crashed, But what did he do? He picked up again. So if you look at the all price index, you see that during crisis, the market comes down and it goes up higher than the peak that it was before. So you see like something that goes up like that goes up like that. So it will come down, it will correct, it will go back. It will correct, it will go back. And that's how the market works. But if you now draw the line over time, you see that the line goes like that. It doesn't go down. The line goes like that. That means it grows over time. Having that long-term thinking is very, very important when you are doing an investment like this.
Some people may say, okay, I'm saving money in my bank, so I don't need to invest. What's the difference between investing or just putting money in a savings account in the bank? Well, you just laughed.
And I hope this discussion we are having, it triggers people to start working on personal finance. And that's the reason why we are doing this. Your biggest enemy is inflation. Your biggest enemy is inflation. And the way inflation works is that, let's say you are a household of 4, husband, wife, children, and your income is, say, 100,000 naira a month. And you are able to save 20,000 naira. And the reason you are able to save 20,000 naira is that your expenses, rent, everything, school fees, everything is 80,000 naira, right? You are able to save 20,000 naira a month. If you look at as the year grows, even look at it now, was the price you are buying things now the same that you are buying things last year?
Definitely not.
Definitely not. So that means that if your income stays the same, your savings will reduce or disappear. If your expenses reaches 100,000, you will not be able to save anymore. That's when you're saying you are living paycheck to paycheck. So inflation, it is your biggest enemy, which is the general increase in the price of goods and services. And as inflation is happening, any money you save in the bank just stays the same, literally. That is if they are not even taking bank charges.
Wow.
So what you want is for that money to be doing some work.
Doing something.
To be growing as well. So there are different ways to make that money grow. You can give it to Mr. Wale to go and be doing something. But how well will Mr. Wale manage that money? That is something. But you can use it to invest in a company like, let's say, Apple or Microsoft, and everybody's using Microsoft. We use Excel, we use PowerPoint, we use this. If you put the money there as an investor, the money will grow faster for you than just leaving it lying in the bank. That is the difference between putting money to work and then money staying in cash. But there is a risk involved. And that's what you always have to remember. You might as well just be looking at your 100,000 in cash than investing it in something. Because when you invest in a stock, in the S&P 500, the same anything, you stand a chance of losing money if the price of the asset goes down.
Yeah.
That is the risk you are paying. There is always risk management. All the study of risk in finance is huge. So where do you want to put your money? Where you are not too exposed, where you can reduce the risk as much as possible. If I invest only in Facebook, for example, I stand the risk of if Facebook shares goes down, all my money is gone. So can I diversify my risk? And that's where investing in an index is also good, because when you invest in an index, you are not only exposed to Facebook, you are exposed to
all the other
ones, Microsoft. You are exposed to fast-moving consumer goods as well. All those companies, you are exposed to healthcare companies like Pfizer and all of that. They are also part of the S&P 500. So that means you are diversifying your risk.
Yes.
And then if you want to even diversify even further, rather than investing in stock, have real estate on one side as well, if you are able to. That means you are building what Ray Dalio called an all-weather portfolio. You can buy some gold as well if you want to, because gold is an asset that appreciates over time as well. You can keep that, keep some stock, but more importantly, what we are doing here is not to say go and do this, go and do this. It should trigger you to start saying, I want to take my personal finance seriously.
Yes. I want to make my money work for me.
I want to make my money work for me.
Because I don't know what the future is going to hold.
Because I don't know what the future holds. They say what you don't know can hurt you really, really bad. And when I found out about all these things, I was like, wow, why are we not thought anything about this? Why don't we know currency devaluation? Why don't we know the power that the dollar has above all our currencies? Why don't we know about inflation? Why don't we know that we can own all these kind of companies? Those are the questions I was asking myself. Why did it take me so late to understand? It's good to know and not do anything about it. That's at least you know that you know. And you just didn't do it. But not knowing can really, really hurt. When Facebook turned to $470 something, I was tweeting about it. I was like, these are the things that I figured out. And I thought like, wow, is this part of the things the wealthy know that we don't? They know where to put their money and it will grow from generations to generations. And I go on YouTube a lot and I see like young people talking about, I own these shares, I do this, I own this real estate and do this. The money conversation has to be brought to the table. And we have to be talking to our young children. Like, look, this is how the world works in finance. And I read so many books to arrive at where I am here. Psychology of Money, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Simple Pathway to Wealth. I read all these books because I wanted to know.
And now you're pouring all that information out for free. Free.
We all have to know these things. We all have to know it. We all have to start working on it. I mean, one of my brothers reached out to me from the US and he was asking me about ISAs, because we're talking about ISAs in the UK, which is like the investment savings account where you can invest tax-free. As an adult, you can do £20,000 a year, invest in an ISA. You can invest in a stocks and shares ISA, and your wealth will grow without the government touching it. It's tax-free.
Wow.
You can do it for your children as well. So my brother, one of the brothers just sent me a DM and he was like, okay, what about the US? Does US have something like that? And I said, yes, the US has some accounts for children that you can start investing for the children and they can grow. It was like, wow. And these are the kind of things, particularly for a lot of us that have moved here. What are the investment vehicles that we are putting in place for our pension? It is very, very critical.
Wow. Toyyib, honestly, I am blown away by everything you said today. And I think just to add to what you said that knowing that, it's better to know it and,
yes.
You know it or you don't do anything, or you know it and you do something.
Exactly.
And I just want to tell you guys out there, now that you know this, please use this knowledge. Use this knowledge. Like Toyyib said, you don't know tomorrow. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if all the stock, everything is just going to go crazy. The world's already crazy. But use this knowledge to your advantage and prepare for tomorrow. Prepare yourself for tomorrow, especially with the emergency funds.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We have to have a financial plan. We have to take personal finance very, very, very seriously. Very, very. People are making decisions around the world, maybe the New York Central Bank or the Bank of England or the Central Bank in Nigeria, they are making decisions that really, really affect you. How well do you know about those decisions? You don't need to go and delve into so many books, but have a financial blueprint that you are following to say, okay, this is how I'm managing. Because money is a very, very important topic. As much as we don't want to talk about it, it affects all of us.
Yes.
It affects all of us. And that's why we are having this conversation.
Wow. So is there anything else you'd like to say to people out there?
I think we've touched on everything.
Yeah.
But I would say finance is so big, personal finance is so big that it is difficult for us to do justice in this last few minutes that we spent together. It's difficult for us to do justice. But there are always books. The knowledge is always out there. One of the first ways I started learning was watching YouTube videos. And it was just like a rabbit hole. And I was very curious. And I started reading more. So there is a lot of knowledge out there. So I can just recommend books and say, look, get these books, digest it, watch videos on YouTube. And the funny thing as well is that some of the people that write these books, they come on podcasts like this.
Yes.
You know, and then they break down the outline of what they are talking about in the book. And then, everything now starts clicking because we have different, the speed at which we learn is very, very different.
Yeah.
So we have to be deliberate about the knowledge. I talked about the books I started with, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Richest Man in Babylon. We've got Learn to Earn by Peter Lynch, Psychology of Money, Morgan Housel. There is one other one, Simple Pathway to Wealth, J.L. Collins. Intelligent Investor, that might be a little bit complex, Benjamin Graham. You know, there is a lot of it. I saw one earlier, I'll Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. That's another good one as well. And there are Netflix, there are some Netflix documentaries on money as well that you can watch. If you type money, you see some very, very good documentaries that you can use to understand money, investment, savings. There was one I was seeing recently. I lost the name. He was a footballer in America, and he was making so much money.
Wow.
But he didn't know where to put it. You know, we've had, and people say that it is not about what you earn. It's much more about what you do with what you earn.
Yes.
We have seen people that were superstars. Maybe they were like footballers or they were like musicians. They made so much money in their career, but they ended up very broke.
Or people who've won the lottery.
And
they just squandered it.
Majority of them fall depressed because it is not actually the money.
It's knowing what to do, having the knowledge what to do with the money.
So that is very, very critical. And I was watching this thing, superstar, but didn't know what to do with money. And one injury, everything goes down, you know. So we have to have this knowledge, watch those kind of shows, enlighten yourself about money. Because whether we like it or not, money is a topic that affects all of us.
Everybody, no matter who you are.
All of us. Someone said one quote, he said, money is so important, you know, that it could be right up there with oxygen.
Wow.
Yes.
That's true. Thank you so much, Toyyib.
My pleasure.
And at this point now in our podcast, I have 3 numbers for you. You have to pick one of the numbers, and whatever it says, you have to do it.
All right, no problem.
So number 1, number 2, number 3. What number do you want?
I'll pick number 1.
Wow. I don't know why people always go for number 1.
Oh, well, okay.
So number 1 is for you to actually rap. You pick number. I'm going to give you I can give you a beat and you rap, or you can rap one of your favorite raps from, younger years.
Oh my goodness.
You pick number 1, so you have to do you want me to give you the beat, or do you want to
Oh wow. I'm trying to remember any rap song that I know.
Okay, let me give you the beat and you can just try and freestyle.
Okay.
Let me give you the beat. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
You sure?
Yeah, let's go.
Boom, 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 boom.
Life is not easy. We have to stay ready. We have to do all we can to keep going. I think that's how far I can go.
You sure that's as far?
That's as far as I can go. I didn't have any lyrics in my head.
But that was going good. Life is not easy.
We have to stay ready.
See, those are some motivation. I'm sure you can go on and give us some more.
That's all for now.
Yeah, sure. All right. Thank you, Toyyib. It's been great having you in our studio today again.
Yes.
And obviously, there's a reason why we brought you back here again, because the first time you gave us so much knowledge, but, we needed to hear this also.
It's very, very important. In fact, I'm on a personal mission. A lot of people that I talk with, life coaching and all of that, is about designing a very, very good life for ourselves. And that includes career.
Yes.
And that includes money and well-being as well. It's all part of that thing that makes you happy, that gives you a fulfilling life. If you are not looking at these kind of things, you'll be thinking, there's some part of my life that I'm not looking after. And that's why this money discussion is very important.
Wow. Thank you so much, Toyyib.
Thank you.
So if you enjoyed that, don't forget to like, subscribe, and obviously drop a comment and let Toyyib know what he said today means to you. Or if you have any questions, you can drop them in the comments too, and Toyyib might, if he has the time,
I'll try and check it through.
Hopefully he can try and address them. And don't forget to check out the other episode with Toyyib, where he actually talks about his life story and how he's gotten to where he's gotten to. That would also motivate and inspire you. So thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
Tune in each week. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review or comment.